Hello everyone, my name is Jacob Tiranno of ChasingCinema.com, and the following podcast you are about to hear was recorded earlier this week. Unfortunately, Thursday evening, tragedy struck this nation again. There was a shooting in Lafayette, Louisiana that took place in a movie theater. This shooting took the lives of 3 people, including the gunman, and injured 7 others. At this moment, they were all taken to nearby hospitals, and their conditions ranged from non-threatening to critical. It took place at the Grand Theater 16 in Lafayette, a multiplex where a group of people were watching the movie Trainwreck. In the following podcast, me and my co-host Louie Coruzzolo are going to talk about Trainwreck very in-depthly. The reason why I've decided to talk about this is because the movie theater is my home. It is Louie's home. And it is another home for a lot of people. And for this tragedy to strike somewhere where people are supposed to experience something magical together greatly affects us. It was only about 3 years ago when the tragedy in Aurora, Colorado happened. And it leaves me shocked and saddened and very confused that this sort of tragedy has to happen again. I think Christopher Nolan, the director of The Dark Knight Rises, which was the movie that was screened that night, the shooting happened in Aurora, had some really interesting things to say that will be able to sum up my thoughts better than I can right now. I'd like to quote him in his response to the Aurora, Colorado shooting, because it addresses the same thing that happened in Lafayette. I believe movies are one of the great American art forms, and the shared experience of watching a story unfold on screen is important and enjoyable pastime. The movie theater is my home, and the idea that someone would violate that innocent and hopeful place in such an unbearably savage way is devastating to me. Nothing any of us can ever adequately express our feelings of the innocent victims of this appalling crime, but our thoughts are with them and their families. My thoughts, Chasing Cinema's thoughts and prayers go out to the families and loved ones of those affected in the Lafayette shooting that just took place earlier this evening. I wish I was able to say more and make more sense of this, but unfortunately, I'm at a loss of words. We are going to take a moment of silence and dedicate this podcast and the memory of those who lost their lives this evening and those who were affected. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. thank you for tuning in to ChasingCinema.com's official YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jacob Tiranno, and today I'm going to be joined by loyal, faithful co-host / best friend,
Louie Coruzzolo.
And make sure to hit that subscribe button before we go any further. That way, each week our episodes are automatically downloaded to your iPad, your iPod, your iPhone, or whatever Apple product you're listening to your iTunes or podcasts on. But if you're not an iTunes person, please feel free to head over to youtube.com/chasingcinema, where all of our podcasts are also uploaded, as well as our daily movie news, video reviews, interviews, and much, much more fun stuff is available on there. So make sure to go check that out. Today, me and Louie are going to be talking about the movies we've been watching. I'm going to be preparing for next week, where I'm not sure if last week, Louie, do you remember if last week I said that this week's going to be top 5?
You gave the option.
Okay.
Like, I'm pretty sure it's going to be 2 weeks from now, but
yeah. All right. Well,
yeah.
Either way, if you guys did hear me say that, me and Josh are going to be doing. Me and Josh Bell are going to be doing the top 5 favorite movies of the year so far this week. Fortunately, I had to push that back till next week, but that will be here. That is going to be there. I promise. It's already been recorded, so don't worry about that. Nonetheless, I apologize if you were looking forward to that. But this week, me and Louie are going to be talking about Pixels and Southpaw, which came out this week. But before we do that, me and Louie are going to talk about some of the movies we watched. I'm going to be talking about the Mission Impossible series as well as the Vacation series. But first, Louie, last week you told us that you were going to be seeing Trainwreck.
Yes.
Which we, in fact, reviewed last week. And I really have been waiting to hear your thoughts on that movie, especially because how much I enjoyed it. So, please, sir, what were your thoughts on Judd Apatow and Amy Schumer's film Trainwreck?
Trainwreck is definitely one of the best movies of the year so far. I absolutely loved and enjoyed that movie so much. I think it was a home run. Like every point of the movie, every comedic moment, every heartfelt moment was so in tune with the story and characters that it just created a great experience, an experience that never gets old, and that you always want more of. It's very much like a Bridesmaids type movie, and we both love Bridesmaids.
Mm-hmm.
It reminded me of a type of movie like that. But having Amy Schumer, her writing her first movie, starring in her first movie, she nailed it. I was so impressed in the way she handled and carried herself on screen.
Yeah,
there were scenes where it was this brilliant comedy acting and this brilliant acting, like in the funeral scene.
Yes.
That's all I'm going to say about that. She was amazing in that.
Yep, I was the exact same way.
She looked like a seasoned pro during that scene. I was taken aback by that.
Mm-hmm.
I was moved by that scene. I think Judd Apatow was perfect for this movie. This is right up his wheelhouse. And like you mentioned in the review last week, that he added the perfect amount of heart to the film. Like with every, edgy comedy moment that's very funny, he was right there to kind of hone it and bring it back to a personal level, which we all could relate to in some way. So I give him all the credit. And even the parts of the movie that they, I guess try to push it too edgy or go too comedic or even too cliched, you kind of forgive it because it's still funny at the heart. Like the whole big ending sequence,
yeah,
it's definitely cliche. Like you almost feel like Mr. Deeds
turns into rom-com, right? Like out of nowhere. It doesn't feel rom-com the entire movie, and then that scene's like, wait, what?
Yeah,
this belongs in a different movie.
Exactly, but at the same time, I couldn't blame Amy for doing what she did in that scene because it was still visually funny.
Yeah, it was.
And it still hit all the marks it was supposed to hit. So in that regard, I can't blame her for saying, let's go all out. Let's nail it. So, I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. It was a refreshing take on a rom-com. I love the gender reversals. I thought, Amy's character is your typical male character in any of these type of movies, but having her write it for herself from a female perspective was amazing. I love Bill Hader. I'm a big Bill Hader fan, and I think people overlook how great he was on SNL when he was always playing the straight characters in the scenes. Like everyone remembers him for Stefan and the old news reporters and all of his out there characters, and rightfully so. But some of his best work on SNL was him being the straight guy in the scene. And like you said, he plays a straight guy here a lot of the time, and it just works. He's so likable. He just comes off the screen. You like him. And then LeBron, I thought LeBron was great.
LeBron was amazing in this movie.
LeBron was the man in this movie, and like I do agree with the sentiment. If you don't like him beforehand, after watching it, you can't help but, you know what, that guy's okay.
Yeah, right.
Like,
he's
come
very
on.
likable.
Very likable, and he kind of, I don't want to say he pokes fun at himself, but in a way he kind of does.
Yeah.
And his whole, being, this dominant alpha male, but, acting like, this a young kid rooting his best friend in love. I thought that was brilliant. And John Cena was amazing too. Because I know, you talked about how great he was, and you kept mentioning it, but of course you didn't give it away too much, because if you did, it wouldn't do it justice, number one, and you didn't want to spoil it. So I kept thinking to myself, maybe he's just saying that. He's a wrestling fan. He's going to support the wrestlers. I'm sure he's funny, but he's not that great. He was great. John Cena I was flabbergasted, like, oh my Lord. Wow. Like, his scenes are so amazing that I wanted to see his character at the end of the movie. Like, I wish they brought him back, like, at the end sequence somehow, just throw him in there. But it was a great movie. Oh, and before I forget, I want to mention Colin Quinn fast. I thought Colin Quinn was just terrific.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't done a lot lately. I know he has his, I think, a web show, making fun of cop shows, which I think we should check out. But he was terrific. Like, I was so impressed with his performance. He was funny, and he was, and very
totally
sincere and very authentic. So yeah, I'm a big Trainwreck fan. Amy Schumer is doing her thing. I'm so happy. I can't wait to see if she continues this, because, she's a brilliant comedy mind. So she could continue to take her approach and bring it to film. I think everyone's lucky.
Well, hopefully Trainwreck will make her that household name, because even though that she is very popular and she has developed a name for herself, I'm not trying to undermine her work, but not everyone knows who she is. And hopefully this movie will do that, because I do want to see her more stuff. Now, the question to me is, and I agree with you, is that she comes off very seasoned and very well trained, in that scene, especially you mentioned, it is very heartbreaking, and that's very real. But I wonder if that's because it is so real to her. Her father did suffer from MS, which her father in the movie suffers from. A lot of real things are relatable in this movie. So maybe it was a little bit easier for her, but I still think she'll be able to deliver great comedy and, have that intensity, hopefully, in other projects. It's just up to her now to do different stuff and not kind of fall in that, cliched role. And, to really kind of show the world her type of comedy, because even though she's hilarious in this movie, it's nowhere near the raunchy Amy Schumer that exists. So,
yeah, absolutely. Like, she could have definitely taken the raunchy factor up to 11.
Yeah.
And she didn't. And,
but everything still works.
And that's okay. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just like everyone in this movie did such a great job. Amy Schumer, Brie Larson, who played her sister, very, very good as well. And Tilda Swinton, who is
amazing,
hilarious in this movie. Even the small role of Vanessa Bayer is hilarious in this movie. In the very beginning, she cracked me up with the whole smile thing. I was dying.
That was great.
I mean, just right as soon as you start, I was already rolling.
And because he does have that smile where, she could get like a big, big smile out of that, and it's just so funny. But yeah, like you said, I love Brie Larson. Have always been a fan. Short Term 12, amazing. Definitely check that one out. And she was great in this too. And I love her character's interaction with her father. I mean, well, yeah, I guess her father too, but with her husband and her, stepson. That was just so oddly and weird, but not too weird where it's like, okay, but just like a hint of like oddity. And I thought that it played it so straight, the three of them. It's amazing. Like how the father and the son always showed up like they were at the diner, Amy Schumer and Brie Larson, and all of a sudden, like, 3 tables down there,
they're
guys stay lunch,
Yeah.
and then they're walking in the park. Who shows up skating is the father. Like, it's just so odd and random, but it works so well.
And that's the thing. Like, even the smallest roles work really, really well. Mm-hmm. Another person I want to mention who unfortunately was not in this movie at all near long enough is Randall Park, who, great off first with the boat, but I mean, just in this scene for, just 2 scenes, I think, very, very small, and he's just the guy who wants to write this article, and he's just totally pushed aside, and it's hilarious. I mean, just his delivery, the way he reacts to the situation, just absolutely hilarious. I mean, I was like, when is he coming back? I enjoyed everyone in this. Every character we met had some, was always kind of enjoyable, either it be comedy, or because they're the level-headed, or just because the oddity, as you pointed at, the kind of strange father-son. I mean, everything worked, and every character just, you wanted to keep seeing, and I think that was one of the strengths of this movie. But Randall Park, man, he was great, and unfortunately he wasn't in it nowhere near as enough as he should have been.
Yeah, the beginning scene with him when he gets rejected, and he's like, "Okay, stop complaining about it." He's like, "Oh, I'm not," but you can tell he's so hurt, and he wants to do
genuinely upset. That whole opening scene's a really, really great moment.
Yeah,
just that whole conference is a great setup, and trying to think of who else who did really. I mean, everyone was really great. The SNL cameos were really fun too. Mm-hmm. We talked about Leslie Jones on the train, had me cracking up.
Oh,
too.
That was that. Another random part in the movie that, like, in any other movie, it would have gone unnoticed. But how they turned it into something so funny, it stays with you. That was an amazing scene.
Was there anything that didn't work for you? The only scene that I think of that kind of doesn't work for me, but still I laughed at, was the intervention. Yeah.
See, being a sports fan, because I know we talked about this, and you didn't like Marv Albert commentating.
No, I thought that was funny, though. Like,
oh, you did?
I don't know who he was, so it wasn't like, but his voice is familiar enough to be kind of funny, but it just like, if I was like, all right, if I could cut this, I would cut it. It was funny kind of idea. Matthew Broderick and all them didn't do anything for me, but he made that scene funny.
Yeah, like, being a sports fan, especially, like, I've listened to Marv Albert call basketball games so many times now that, his voice is definitely iconic. So hearing him narrate and commentate about the events going on in front of you, like, that's what he does. Like, he does the job so much, like, he just takes that into his everyday life. I love that idea. Since you have James there, a basketball player already, you got the connection. Yeah, Matthew Broderick, I like him, but the cameo kind of threw me off because he has nothing to do kind of with the whole...
It just felt random.
Because Chris Everett is a, athlete, the lady with them. LeBron's an athlete, Marv is a commentator, then you got another actor, Matthew Broderick. So the whole thing, didn't kind of
mesh,
gel with that. And it does seem out of place, but I like how LeBron, like, the whole idea and concept of the scene is like LeBron wants, like, his friend to be okay, so he fakes an injury and it's a surprise intervention to get Bill Hader straight again.
What? Go on.
So that idea, like, that scene didn't bother me as much just because of it did hit the notes it was trying to hit.
Yeah,
I would have replaced Matthew Broderick with maybe another athlete. Like, you could have had Amari Stoudemire, the other basketball player in the movie.
Playing John Cena.
That'd be funny. No, he does a 2-parter. Someone in that, sports, universe that could maybe gel the scene a little bit better.
What about the, I'm going to forget his name, Ezra Miller scene? The young intern.
Yeah, that was another odd, crazy moment. But that scene worked. It was funny. It got weird, and then when the big punchline comes, it definitely delivers. I there wasn't a lot that I did not like about.
Well, those
this
would
movie.
be the 2 scenes I'd kind of and again, they're not real flags, but just if to me, I think if you would cut those scenes, we have a tighter movie.
Yes.
And
I guess, but then because they use that scene
for a reason why but I mean, we could have easily.
I guess Amy and Judd could have found a better way to get to the resolution they were trying to get to without using that scene.
Mm.
but it was, it was almost like off of a rebound type deal. So like, kind of messed with the whole character. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, and
You
like
know?
I said, and these are only kind of half-assed because
Yeah.
I enjoyed the movie. It
Yeah,
might or might not end up on my top 5 list of the best movies of the year so far next week. You'll have to tune in to pay attention. But I mean, I really enjoyed it. Judd Apatow, I think it's honestly one of Judd Apatow's best movies. This and This Is 40, I think I absolutely love, and I really, really love both these movies. So
Yes.
I'm excited to see him come back and hopefully make another really great movie. I want to get his book. If you guys missed it, he appeared on Jimmy Fallon this past week with Adam Sandler, both who we're going to be talking about today. Obviously, we're going to be talking about Adam Sandler in his new movie Pixels. But, and he delivered a pretty great stand-up set on that show. But anyway.
Did you like it? Did you like the stand-up set?
I did like it. I think a lot of people reacted like I reacted. Like it was like the ending, obviously, his Cosby moment was funny, but at the same time, I was like, oh, it's kind of weird. It was an odd impression. But it definitely worked on a certain level. I mean, I loved his jokes up until that point, and then that was like, all right, what? And I felt it went just a little bit long. But that's, maybe just because I felt a little bit uncomfortable. I don't know.
It's funny because I don't know if you follow him on Twitter.
Uptown?
Yeah.
I don't know if I do or not, but I missed whatever he posted in that case.
Yeah, he's been a long, outspoken person against Cosby for a while now.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't know that.
And now, he's just picking up steam because of all the more allegations coming out.
Yeah.
And, if you go on Late Night with Seth Meyers and look up his interview with Seth Meyers, they kind of talk about that.
Oh, okay.
And he kind of, it's not an in-depth conversation,
but he elaborates.
He gives his reasons why he does it, and then he does a joke similar to the one he did on Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah.
But he's a very funny man, and the book does seem very interesting. He had a unique journey from how he started as a punk 14-year-old kid
who convinced the people he was a journalist to get interviews with celebrities and comedians. If you're not familiar with the book, it's just a collection of interviews and conversations with comedians. And in the interview with Jimmy Fallon, he explains that when he was 14 years old, he would sneak, just tell people he was a journalist, make them kind of feel bad for him, get interviews, and then he would go back and interview those people now in his mid-40s and do the same interviews and just talk to really, really funny people. Amy Schumer's in there, Jerry Seinfeld's in there, Chris Rock, a lot of people. And I'm really interested just to kind of hearing their conversations, see what they're talking about. Plus, I just really enjoy his movies, so... Mm-hmm. But all right, that is Trainwreck. I'm glad you enjoyed it because I was really anticipating what you were thinking. But I'm glad you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I'm glad you enjoyed John Cena.
Yeah, I mean, and again, how we talked about, everyone's gonna love LeBron after this.
Yeah,
I think they're gonna have a new found respect for John Cena.
I have a new found respect for John Cena.
I know because it was just I wasn't expecting that from him, and he went for it, and it was.
And he was such. And what's funny is that beyond the fact that he's funny and weird, it's that moment we like him. He becomes so likable because he's so innocent and kind that when he actually when Amy kind of hits him with the I've been seeing other guys, it's like, oh man, you really feel bad for him, and you kind of dislike Amy for it.
Yeah, and especially when he says I was thinking about asking you to marry me.
Yeah, I mean, I was I felt for that guy. So to me, I thought that really worked. I mean, granted, man's got some work to do, but hey, The Rock started at Scorpion King, and I think that's the thing. If John Cena keeps acting, and if he keeps acting like that, I think I'd be a fan.
Right, and it seems like he's going to be appearing in the Tina Fey, Amy Poehler film Sisters.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of raunchy comedies, and I think that's smart for him.
Yeah, because so far it's been...
Because I think it's easy for him. I think for people, it's he could be in an action movie, no big deal. But the Marine 12 But I mean, it's easy for him to kind of just go that route. So for him to do comedies, I think that's a really fun avenue for him.
And I wonder if he looks at I know he said in an interview he's not going to leave his profession now.
Life,
yeah. And I believe him when he says that. But I wonder if he looks at The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, and sees how recent Dwayne got into the comedies, kind of starting with the Disney comedies, and then now he's doing a Kevin Hart comedy now and all that.
He did
and
Pain and Gain,
I wonder if he kind of sees, oh, he's good at it. I'm kind of funny.
Yeah.
Because like technically they use comedy in wrestling.
His
style. I know it's different.
Yeah, but I think the best way to describe John Cena's performance is John Cena in this movie is the equivalent to watching The Rock and Be Cool.
The Rock was great in Be Cool. Don't get me wrong. I love The Rock because he was the same type of character. Good observation. Yeah. Odd, strange. I can suck the meat off a chicken bone in one motion. The Rock. He was great in it. But, I give prop for John Cena in this.
Absolutely. This is his first major, well, no, I guess he starred in those two other movies. Yeah, so I guess it's not as big. But,
hopefully more people is definitely going to see him in Trainwreck than they did those movies.
Oh, yeah, because I think 12 Rounds and The Marine both had very...
Only did Die Hard fans.
Yeah, so nonetheless, it was a great movie. I'm glad you enjoyed it. So I rewatched the Vacation movies and the Mission Impossible movies. And I'm going to be reviewing all of them throughout the next week in order to prepare. Vacation, the remake of Vacation, well, not remake or reboot, whatever you want to call it. The new Vacation movie comes out on Wednesday of next week, and my review will be up. The video will be up as usual. Friday, Mission Impossible comes out. Louie will be writing the review for that, so make sure to read that. But throughout the week, starting on Saturday, or is it Friday? I don't remember. Starting on Friday, Saturday, my reviews for these movies are going to be coming out, so make sure to tune in to those. Rewatching the Mission Impossible series really, really made me remember how much I enjoy watching Tom Cruise and how good he is. Not that I ever really forgot. And you know what's really crazy about this movie? Rogue Nation, the new one coming out. Did you see this whole plane stunt?
Yeah.
So, yeah, in the trailer they show you him on this plane, but he really did this. Like, Tom Cruise is known for kind of always doing his stunts, but he doesn't really get credit for it, and a lot of people kind of laugh at it. But there's a video that literally shows him attached to this plane on the outside. No, it's a raw video. Obviously he's really strapped in through a door and everything.
You would hope so.
Yeah, but just the fact that he would let a plane fly, that was pretty awesome. So, but the first movie really holds up. I believe it was made in 1996. Jon Voight is really great in that movie. And though the first Mission Impossible movie is more about a unit, which was like the show Mission Impossible followed a unit, not so much just one character. Great movie, very fun. Oh man, what the hell is his name? Luc Besson is in this movie as well. He's good. Overall, this movie is really, really entertaining. And Mission Impossible 2 is fun. It becomes obviously a lot more of a main character, and Ethan Hunt revolves around him. They're all really, really fun movies. I've enjoyed them. Philip Seymour Hoffman is great in The Third Picture. Ghost Protocol obviously was good enough to kind of revive everyone and get everyone excited about these movies again, because they were really smart in separating these movies out for quite some time. I think it was 1996 and then 2000 and then 2009 or 2003. I'm not sure on the dates, but there's like a couple years in between. So it was very smart for them to do that. Overall, like I said, I really, really enjoyed these movies and found myself surprised by how much I enjoyed them and how well they hold up. So beyond that, and I just remembered, I noticed that I just said Luc Besson was in the first movie, and I didn't mean to say Luc Besson. I meant to say Leon the Professional, and I don't know where my mind went there. He was played by Jean Reno.
Jean Reno,
yeah. And as far as vacation movies, those movies are classic. I think that a lot of people like most of the vacation movies more than I do. Personally, I would take Vacation and Vegas Vacation over the other movies. And I know a lot of people really love Christmas Vacation. I think everyone kind of agrees with me that European Vacation's a pretty disappointment. But I think Vegas Vacation was a movie that I grew up watching, I grew up loving. Wallace Shawn makes that movie for me. Plays the blackjack dealer. Absolutely hilarious. You buy a bullet and rent a gun. I to this day use that quote like nonstop. That's just and a part of me. That performance is so funny. Exchanging 500. He's
you do that pretty good.
Yeah, thank you. And absolutely hilarious. He's great in this movie. And even though it's kind of ridiculous, it's just the one that I watch probably the most, and I think that's why I have so much nostalgia for it.
Absolutely.
Go on.
We do live in Vegas.
Yeah, it does help.
And it does help because, like, just like the scene, like when he's in the buffet eating breakfast with the family, talking about like the plans for today. He's like, "Excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom." Instead of going back, and he goes to gamble, loses all of his money, comes back, and says, "Okay, I think we should split up."
Yeah, he goes, "All right," and it's like just about his total like deterioration into gambling.
Because I
that
love
seems
that.
Great because he just runs to the table, puts his money down, and he goes, runs back, he slams the table. Brilliant.
And then, like, later in the film, they decide to continue this separate day, and I think it's at the pool scene. And then, like, everyone's, his wife is doing the Wayne Newton thing, the kids doing their own thing, and he's left at the pool, and then he checks his pockets, and he has nothing in his pockets. And it just, perfectly captures, I think, like the best stereotypes of Vegas. Fear of being a gambling addict usually falls on the father. Especially how and how the media portrays it. So you get that. You get the pretty wife getting swept away by a celebrity in Vegas.
Yeah.
You got your daughter
who's getting in the clubs and dancing and
a go-go
dancer.
Almost.
Yeah.
And then you got the son, illegal ID, drinking, parties, gambling, all that. So
Mr. Papa Giorgio. And that's the thing,
great.
though, is if you look at this movie, though, it's poorly rated by critics, which I understand, and and most audiences. But to me, I think it was just because it was a movie I watched ever since I was a kid, and it still works for me. So I know people are like, "What Vacation? Vegas is the worst one," but I have fun with that movie, and it's a movie that I can still pop in and just crack up. I think it's better than European Vacation, but nonetheless. You can watch all those video reviews in depth during the week, so make sure to tune in to all those on youtube.com/chasingcinema. But now, Louie and I are going to be reviewing Pixels and Southpaw, two completely different movies. Louie, we're going to play the usual Q&A type deal where Louie's going to ask me some questions and I'll answer them about my reviews of these pictures. And first, we're probably going to start off with the easier movie of the two, and that is Pixels, starring Adam Sandler, Kevin James, Josh Gad, Peter Dinklage, and directed by Chris Columbus.
You return for Chris Columbus.
Huh?
No, Chris Columbus. I like that.
Chris Columbus, man. He's attached to everything. Like, ever since I talked about him and the rumors or remakes of, or reboots, quote unquote, about Gremlins and The Goonies, I've seen his name everywhere. It's, he talked about doing a Harry Potter movie. He's talking about doing a Harry Potter movie right now. I mean, this guy's name's all over the place right now. So it's quite an interesting time for him.
Yes, it is. But let's focus on the present right now and talk about Pixels.
All right,
before
let's talk about Pixels.
Before I, sidetrack you again.
Okay.
Now, do you know if Pixels, like, I know it's a screenplay, but it's an original screenplay, no?
No, it is actually...
No, it's based...
It is based on a short film that wasn't really a short film. I did not watch it yet. Mm-hmm. I have every intention to, but I was explaining that this movie is more of a demo reel for someone with who created on Vimeo, displaying their effects. And to me, if there's no real movie, there's no real dialogue or talking, and it's just kind of a demo reel. It wasn't really an idea, but since they adapted that short or film, whatever you want to call it, it is not an original.
Yeah, because I'm not a gamer per se, but I've enjoyed Pac-Man and Donkey Kong and Mario with the best of them.
Yeah,
by far. So the idea, the concept, I think it's pretty brilliant. Mm-hmm. Even though a bit silly,
yes, and
out there, but nonetheless pretty brilliant. Because I'm thinking about it. I'm surprised they didn't attempt this sooner, especially with all the technology and game. After Wreck-It Ralph, with all the games and. Yeah. Like, it's becoming more prevalent in our, pop culture.
And Adam Sandler even said that on Jimmy Fallon. He says, "I'm surprised no one's done this already."
Yeah.
And that's really true. I mean, of all the ideas, it is surprising that no one's done it before. And for some, it's very unfortunate that Sandler was the first one to do it. Now, if I feel that's unfortunate or not, we'll get into it in a second. But it is a great concept. I definitely played my share of those games. Unfortunately, I didn't play most of them in the arcade and in the world that they were designed to. And originally, obviously, we was a little bit before our time. I mean, but I played Donkey Kong on the Nintendo or Super Nintendo or whatever it may be, and Mario and Pac-Man. Everyone's played Pac-Man in their lifetime, but not necessarily an arcade, but part of a casino for area, here in Vegas, I guess, where maybe not everyone relates to that, but in every casino there's an arcade, or Kids Quest, just little areas, not really like in a whole arcade though. I've never been to a building that's literally made for just to be an arcade. I don't think so. Never had that experience, but definitely familiar with all the games. But not all of them, but most of them.
Most of them. Okay, so
and really quick though, I do want to mention though, I'm not a gamer though. I'm not a person who relates to video games. I mean, well, I don't want to say that, but I'm not a person who plays video games regularly. I think I maybe could say I pick up a controller. I pick up the sticks, as the cool kids would say. Only maybe if a couple times a year. I mean, unless there's a game that I really, really want to play, or Samantha, who does love video games, play, and I'm like, oh, let me try this. Or I got to help her because she's one of those people who can't like stay still and be quiet in a mission and stuff. Things like that, I honestly don't play. I mean, the last game I played start to finish was the third Batman game. And unfortunately, I haven't even played the new Batman game, which just came out, which is really bad for me because I'm obviously a huge Batman fan. But I don't play games. It's just not my thing. So though I'm familiar with the nostalgia, I really don't relate to it where like video games are my life. I play video games every day. I don't have that going into this movie. I want to just kind of say as a disclaimer, not that should affect how I enjoy this picture. Okay,
but before we get into the nitty-gritty of this movie, ultimately, did it affect your enjoyment level? Like, do you think people who are going to enjoy this movie are most likely going to be the gamers, or everyone? Like,
I get your question.
Yeah.
I think that it's a movie where everyone will be able to enjoy it, and the main games are the main focus. There is a scene when we get like 100 game characters, and I didn't know all of them. And, that didn't really change the way I felt about the movie, though. I think that, if you are someone who... Here's the thing. I guess I'll kind of bleed this into my review, is just that, to me, just because you show me something that I've once known or once seen doesn't make what you're doing good. So just because you put, a game that I once played, or a character, or Mario, or, much beyond Mario, or Pac-Man, or any of the little characters that are in these movies... in this movie, just because you put him in there doesn't make it a good movie because you're reminding me of something nostalgic. It's what you really do with them. And yeah, there are characters where I'm like, I don't know who that is or what reference that is to. But I don't think that should really... it's not to the point where it's like, oh man, I missed this really big part of the movie because I had no idea what they were talking about. Everything is pretty self-explanatory. Main focuses are Centipede, Pac-Man, and Donkey Kong. I would say those were the main focuses are. And for the most part, everyone kind of knows those games and knows those characters. And not even really... Centipede has a character. It has the villain of the Centipede. But, we have Donkey Kong. We have Pac-Man. There are a few other characters that have some importance. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's really what affects the movie. I think it's what they do with these characters that really kind of matter.
I know this is jumping the gun a bit. Are there any cameos of video game characters that they haven't advertised that are like huge?
Because I think that depends. Like, I think that kind of depends on like what you...
I'm thinking like I probably it's not, because I'm thinking like I thought it'd be so cool if they have Mario in this film.
Mario
in some capacity.
Mario is in this movie. But it's not a cameo. Like, it is the very 2D... It's the very two-dimensional version of him before he really had features, like the N64 version. It was definitely more like the original Nintendo. And he just kind of jumps across screen. One of my favorite earlier games, which I think is the title, I'm actually looking right now, was the Newspaper Boy, which was a game where you would play literally a newspaper boy and you had to deliver papers on a bike. You don't remember this game?
No.
Really? So basically, you're on this bike, and you had to stop. You had to be able to slow down and speed up, and you had to deliver. But if you threw the paper too hard or too late, it would go through a window or hit their car, or you'd run over something and you'd crash. And that character's in there too. But I mean, there's no like real character that is part of the movie who interacts with our character, or who actually becomes a part of the movie where we actually like become a character, except when I'm forgetting his name right now, the little orange character. I forget the game he's from. I'll think of the name in a minute, but go ahead and ask me your next question while I think.
So
starts with an S.
So pretty much, as the trailer has described, the movie takes place, years after they sent a time capsule of the 80s into outer space. And then, aliens have taken that and developed weapons of mass destruction, and using what they found in the time capsule, and has brought it back to Earth to end mankind.
It's Q*bert, by the way. I'm sorry, guys. I know people are going to be like, oh, why the hell didn't you know that? Q*bert's the only character that we really get to kind of know and be a part of the group. Mm-hmm. Go on, I'm sorry.
So they, attack planet Earth to cause chaos, destruction, and the unlikely heroes step up because they know how to beat the games. That's the gist of it. Well, correct?
Yeah. Essentially, in the early 80s, there is the World's Video Game Championship. And young Adam Sandler, young Josh Gad, young Kevin James, and young Peter Dinklage are all at this competition, which is being filmed. And this competition is going to be one of the things put in this NASA capsule. I won't say who wins, but this is launched into space. And obviously, after this huge period of time, we find out that the aliens took this as a threat. And in order to fight back, they created these characters, and they create these scenarios in which we have to kind of play the game. And if we win 3 games, we get to keep our planet. If we lose our planet. And because Kevin James grows up to be the president of the United States...
That's a beautiful thought.
He calls in his best friend, who's Adam Sandler, who's the equivalent to... I mean, he's a nerd in this movie, which is the same thing as like Geek Squad. He's a geek, But in this movie, it's called Nerd, whatever,
mm-hmm.
Who's complaining where he doesn't know where his life went and things like that. And he says, hey, what is this? They see this footage of a base in Guam desolated. Mm-hmm. And they say, what does that sound like to you? What is it? And it reminds him of a game. And he's like, oh my God, this is a game. And lo and behold, they find out that through 1980s video, these aliens are messaging them. So on TV, Ronald Reagan appears, and Ronald Reagan is telling them that this is going to happen and this if they don't do this, and Madonna and people, a lot of random characters like that in the movie who are obviously all computer generated to be saying these things and look at how they did in the 80s.
Yeah.
And so Josh Gad, who's a theorist, and he lives in his mom's basement.
Naturally,
completely thinks JFK was cloned, and you should crazy conspiracy theorists. You have Kevin James, who's the president. You have Adam Sandler, and then Peter Dinklage, who's now in jail, and they have to get him out. Who doesn't want to pay taxes anymore? Similar to Armageddon, and they are the ones who are chosen to kind of take on these creatures because they're the only ones who really know how. Yeah, and that's essentially it. I mean, their intention is not to do this. They try to train these soldiers when Centipede comes, like, all right, this is what you gotta do. Shoot the head, don't shoot the middle. You're gonna make them into 2 centipedes, and they eventually just have to kind of take it into their accounts themselves, mm-hmm. and do this by themselves.
Okay. So now that we understand the full movie, let's break it down, Jake. Let's get right to it. Did Pixels deliver and exceed expectations? Because I know everyone thinks, it's Adam Sandler's Kevin James, or did it, live up to everyone's expected negativity?
Well, here's the thing: is I feel very indifferent about Pixels.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that Adam Sandler is the worst thing to happen in the world, like a lot of people do. No, like genuinely, like if you read something, I watched a review today on Pixels, and some guy literally spent 10 minutes creatively, very creatively, just bashing this guy. And that's not how I like to do things in the first place. I don't like to be mean. You know, I don't find that as my job to be as a critic. You know, if you want to be witty and make fun of somebody to get subscribers and read, hey, that's your thing. I don't necessarily feel that way, and I just don't feel like he is the worst of the worst. He's obviously had a major decline in his movies, and I think you and I both can agree with them. I mean, anything he makes now cannot touch the stuff that he did in the late 90s. Big Daddy, Happy Gilmore. Those are really great films. And you know, even people back then weren't crazy about those movies, but I enjoy those. I enjoy those pictures. This is a movie where I think that they have a great concept, but because it is thrown in an Adam Sandler type movie, it is this kind of really interesting idea that's happening with Adam Sandler and his friends sitting around and joking and laughing about stuff. I mean, that just like any. I mean, that's what Adam Sandler does, is he makes a movie with his friends, he has a good time, and you're just if you're an Adam Sandler fan, you enjoy Adam Sandler for who he is. But overall, I think this was a movie that I would have found 10 times more interesting if it had a different setup and a different cast and a different direction, because it's not these characters in this movie. This concept in these video game characters are in the Adam Sandler movie, if that makes sense, you know. They're working around Adam Sandler's jokes and gags and, you know, butt jokes and fart jokes and, you know, the typical stuff you would see in an Adam Sandler movie.
So Pixels definitely plays like your typical, you know,
it does, and
Adam Sandler movie now.
It is like an Adam Sandler movie with kind of a cool idea, which is a shame because I think the movie was interesting. I think the idea is interesting, you know. But like we were saying earlier, is I think a major problem with this too is that they think that Chris Columbus and his team just kind of assume that because he showed us this characters, this makes us love it. And just because you show me Pac-Man, I know who Pac-Man is. And it's not going to make me as nostalgic as some people, but that doesn't make it good. What are you doing with them that makes it interesting? And he doesn't really do anything with most of these characters, and that's what the shame is. They're there, they do what they do. Pac-Man goes around eating stuff. You know, Centipede is trying to, you know, just kind of attack, and Donkey Kong's throwing barrels. I mean, that's what they do, and you shouldn't just get credit because you pull up something. If I make a movie and I just, you know, bring up something nostalgia or show something nostalgia in a new way, that doesn't make my movie good. That doesn't make what I'm doing revolutionary. It doesn't make it, you know, that just kind of is using another property to gain celebrity from it, I guess you could say, or just, you know, notoriety. And I think that was the kind of problem for me, is just like, yeah, they're in here, but what are we doing? Like, this movie is kind of all going towards nothing. And, you know, and right now the movie has an incredibly low score on Rotten Tomatoes. We are recording before the movie actually hit theaters. So I don't know what the final, you know, Rotten Tomatoes thing, but it's like a 14%. And I've seen I think Mordecai is a far worse film than this. Unfinished Business is I would rather watch Pixels for an entire year than watch Unfinished Business once. And that's true. That's dead truth. I just don't think this movie is as bad as everyone says. But if you've seen an Adam Sandler movie, you've seen Pixels, just with some new cool little effects. But Peter Dinklage, I think, is good in this movie. I think he's kind of funny. You know, Josh Gad, I think he's a bit much in this movie. It's just everything you'd expect. It's the jokes. It's the same type of movie that we've seen 100 times from Adam Sandler in recent years, just put in this type of situation. And to me, that kind of falls flat because there's so much that could have been done here, and we don't execute it because we're too busy watching, you know, Kevin James and Adam Sandler joke about this, and that.
Yeah. But I guess that's expected, like you said, especially now.
It is expected, but it's a shame, you know, and especially because Adam Sandler looks like he could be. Adam Sandler looks excited to be in this movie as people are excited to watch it. And that's the shame. Like, he looks so just kind of, you know, here, let me insert this joke here. Like, he's just so routine now.
Sleepwalking, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he, you know, as Raji would say, he just kind of phoned this in. And that's a shame too. You know, I just don't feel that same heart. And you know, I think there's one moment where fans of Adam Sandler, especially like us, where we'll get one big pop. And that's when he kind of does a joke that he did before, which again doesn't make that good. It's just because we say, "Oh, hey, I know what that's from. That's funny," you know, and that's not really what comedy. I mean, that's you know, it's to me, and I think that's what this whole movie kind of lies on, where it's just like, hey, people will recognize this and they'll be like, oh, hey, I know that, and then that'll make them like the movie, and that's where I think the problem lies in. I think kids will enjoy this movie to a degree, though. It is. I don't know. I believe it's rated PG-13. If not, it should be. At least, because there is you know, some a little bit more adult stuff, because there was a lot of kids in theaters, and for a second I was like, I'm in a kids movie, and you know, but it does have your typical Adam Sandler kind of you know, dirty jokes here and there, and but I think kids will enjoy it to a degree. I think Adam Sandler fans will enjoy it because they like if they still are Adam Sandler fans, like consider themselves Sandler fans, they're going to enjoy it. But this isn't a movie I'd rush out to see. It's not a movie I would really be like recommending to people. It's a movie that I'm sure will hopefully do well. I don't even want to say hopefully, but I don't want the movie to fail either. I don't want any movie to just come. You know, I don't know if I want it to fail or not. I don't want someone to fail, but at the same time, I don't want movies like this to succeed, so we get more of them. But I'm sure this movie will do money, and it's just not one I'd recommend. And you know, it's unfortunate, but it's kind of what people are going after now. And, you know, I mean, I think Wreck-It Ralph takes this concept and does something 10 times better. And you know, people say, well, they're different concepts. But in Wreck-It Ralph, you know, they just showed characters, and that's not true. What's great about Wreck-It Ralph is they show us these characters out of the element that we know them. So I'm not watching Pac-Man do what Pac-Man does every single day of every single time I see him, or Centipede isn't doing what he does, or Donkey Kong's not throwing barrels. In this movie, I'm seeing these characters out of element. I'm seeing them hang out. I'm seeing them interact, which is different. So they took something and they changed it up, and they wanted to show us what they're doing, which is interesting. And that's what I mean. Wreck-It Ralph took them and put them in a different situation, where this movie, yeah, they're there, but they're doing the same thing they've always done, and they're not really characters. I would say the only character, like I said, is Hubert. And maybe another character that Josh Gad has an intimate relationship with. But beyond that, nothing really interesting going on here. I mean, it didn't really... It just didn't... Like I said, I feel very indifferent about it because I don't hate it. It wasn't like, oh, God damn Adam Sandler. You know? But it wasn't like, oh, this was great. This was good. No, it's just like, okay, whatever. I mean, I think I went in knowing what to expect. It delivered 100% what I expected. Mm-hmm. The only thing that blew me away in this movie is that Kevin James is the president. I don't know how I missed that, or I didn't know about that, but I was just like, oh, that's really convenient for this whole entire movie setup. But beyond that, yeah, I mean, it's just okay.
Yeah, well, in the trailer, they don't make it known that he's president.
Yeah,
so
right.
I guess
that's what I thought. And it was,
so I guess you could give them credit for not spoiling it, even though it wasn't a surprise. Yeah. But I guess a nice. Oh, that's kind of cool.
I was like, oh, well, to me, I was like, oh, well, that makes everything in this movie really convenient. Like, this is how Adam Sandler and all of them find their way at the, you know. But nothing really in this movie kind of really hooked me. And honestly, I've seen it. I saw it on Monday, and it's now Thursday morning, and I can remember a handful of parts. So, which
is sad, but at the same time, I think we're getting to the point where there's too many people or too many critics have like a negative association with Adam Sandler, and I guess rightfully so, because he hasn't produced good movies recently. Yeah, very bad movies. But at the same time, they should take your approach more like, okay, listen, I know I'm gonna get it's Adam Sandler. Somehow it works for him and his fans. So, you know, let it be. C'est la vie.
That's true. But at the same time, there are people that I take a very hard critique at sometimes, too, because I think mostly because for people, at least for me, I find it frustrating when someone does something really good and shows like a really great potential and then ends up recoiling. I think that's about like Mark Wahlberg. I pick on Mark Wahlberg a lot now because like I've seen that man incredibly perform. And I feel like he, you know, and again, if that's what these people want to do, that is 100% okay. I'm not here to tell them what they want to do, but as a critic, I'm going to tell you that what they're doing is terrible. You know, it's not good, but sometimes they surprise you. And, you know, I'm hoping there's still a movie where I watch and I go, oh, wow, this is the Adam Sandler that I know. But, I think kids, young teens will enjoy this movie, and it's a shame. And, sometimes critics obviously take it a little bit harshly, but I definitely knew some people that were just kind of, hitting their head on their chair while this whole movie was going on. And though I didn't feel that extent to it, maybe I just wasn't as anxious. I mean, I know I've done it before, and but this movie, like I said, just kind of passing by, and I was like, nah, okay. Yeah. That's the best way I could put it. Nah, okay.
So let's pass that movie by then.
Yes. And let's talk about a movie that's completely opposite. It doesn't have any type of computer characters or video game characters or Adam Sandler in it.
And the movie we're going to talk about is Southpaw. Now, I've been very intrigued by this movie for a long time now, because initially when Kurt Sutter, the writer, developed this story in the screenplay, the intention was to have Eminem.
I am phenomenal.
Play exactly that Eminem, that Marshall Mathers, play the lead in this film, because a lot, at least initially, and Jake's going to let us know if they kind of hit the point, but a lot of the character was going to have a lot of the same relationship as Eminem and his real life struggle with addiction, family struggles, custodial battles, you name it, it's going to be in the film. But all of that changed. Eminem dropped out. He's still a producer, I believe, and developed the soundtrack for the film. But they brought in Jake Gyllenhaal, who I think is one of the hottest actors working today. His latest films, he's been phenomenal in all of them. And so it's interesting to see what he's going to do about it. Any other backstory you want to mention about this film before we go on?
No, but someone did ask me about the whole Eminem thing after the movie, and we'll talk about that. But there definitely is
some parallels.
Well, we'll get in. I'll get into that. But
go ahead. Okay.
But like Louis said, Jake Gyllenhaal, I honestly could say, is eagerly becoming one of my favorite actors working today, because every time I see him, no matter what he's in, he always impresses me, especially coming off of last year with his movie Nightcrawler, which blew me and Louis away. Both of our number one picks for best movie of the year last year, right?
It sure did, yeah.
Okay. And then even, Prisoners, movie he was in the year before, he was phenomenal in. You could go back and even into his earlier work. I mean, the man really, really delivers.
End of Watch before Prisoner?
End of Watch. Brokeback Mountain, obviously. I mean, the man has a list, and every time I see him, he really captivates me. And Nightcrawler really made me go, wow, like Jake Gyllenhaal is one of the best actors we got, because unfortunately I think his name kind of does get left out sometimes in these type of conversations, but he's definitely deserving. So yeah, we have him in this movie, which to me is the real snag, is okay, this is why I'm going to go see it. So yeah, I know we talked about Eminem and Jake Gyllenhaal, so I guess that's my position on Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I love he's kind of almost reminding me of a different type of version of DiCaprio, because I think DiCaprio is so self-conscious in his choices to improve his filmography, and very selective, which is great. Jake is not as selective, but it appears now he's paying more attention to what type of films he wants to keep making, and yeah. I see the connection there, and I appreciate it. And I see, you know what? I see that, and good for you, Jake. I'm happy you're being successful.
Yeah, but I mean, even in the movies that aren't as as powerful or as good that he is in, he still makes a decent performance out of them. A perfect example would be.
I was a big fan of Source Code.
Yeah, me too. We were both fans of that movie. But I mean, Love and Other Drugs, not a particularly great movie, nothing really new, but he was good in that movie. I mean, every time I watch him, he offers something. Now, granted, I didn't see Prince of Persia which people really hated. And obviously The Day After Tomorrow was no good, but...
Yeah, I haven't seen Prince of Persia either, but I think that was almost the turning point.
Yeah.
of his career. I think maybe he... I don't know. I haven't read anything about it, but maybe he took that to heart. Or didn't like the experience he received doing that movie, doing that type of movie, getting that negative feedback. And he kind of, since there, and I know he did Love and Other Drugs in the same year as that. So after those two movies, he went right into Source Code, End of Watch, Prisoners, Enemy, which I was a fan of.
Which I didn't see yet, so I still need to see.
That was a different good movie. Into Nightcrawler, into this, so that kind of changed his pace. And Zodiac is amazing. I talked about Zodiac before on this podcast. He's great in it.
So even before Love and Other Drugs, he did some really great performances, obviously. But nonetheless, Jake Gyllenhaal is great. So okay, so anyway, so now what was your next question?
So Southpaw, for those who don't know, it's a boxing movie. Jake Gyllenhaal plays Billy Hope, who appears to be a boxer.
Such a boxing name. Billy Hope. I swear. And just Billy. Like, to me, it's such a boxing name. Like, I feel like every time I see a boxing movie...
when you think of Billy, you think almost like a kid from the streets, like back in the day.
His name is Billy Hope. I mean, that's a perfect fighting name. I couldn't get over that.
It sounds like he has, hope.
Yeah.
But like as a fighter. Yeah. Like Billy Hope, he's not gonna, go down just lying down.
Yeah.
So Billy Hope, he's troubled, right?
Yes, to say the least,
right?
He is
his life is in shambles. He's addicted. He's full of rage. He wants to win. He wants to do a good career. But as this is happening, his life crumbles, and now it's time for redemption.
Yes. Well, that's pretty much 3/4 of the movie. Well, that is half the movie, at least.
Yes. So. You want to discuss the other half then?
Well, like most boxing movies, at least most great boxing movies, they're never about boxing. Boxing happens, but it's about a person and a self-destructive person at that. This movie is about a self-destructive person, like Raging Bull, but like Rocky and every other boxing, the fighter. These are about destruct people first and foremost, and about these people, but most of the time it's about someone who's very destructive. Mm-hmm. People who like to, people who not necessarily enjoy, but like get hit in the head every day, and tend to keep on doing it and beat up other people. And you just gotta assume there's something kind of like, all right. But Billy Hope is a person who I think is really kind of oblivious, especially in the beginning of the movie, because he obviously he's 43 when we first meet Billy Hope. And he's someone who doesn't use... My problem when I first saw this movie was like, all right, I'm already out. Because in the first fight, he's just taking shots to the face. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, all right, so this is kind of like Rocky, where we don't... Like, defense was never a thing. And, Rocky fans don't hate on me. But if you watch Rocky, like, clearly there are hands down and just they take shots to the face. This movie's happening, and I'm like, wait, what? Like, why? Boxers don't do this, Come to find out that this is Billy's thing. He just takes punches. He doesn't do defense until he gets angry enough to win. So, now the reason why I call him oblivious, because I don't think that's a word many people use, but, he's beat up, he's bloody, he's bleeding out of his mouth, and that night when Rachel McAdams, his wife, who addresses like, hey, we have a daughter now, And like I said, it's not like she's a brand new daughter. She's, 7, 8 years old. She goes, you should kind of calm down. I don't think I really want you fighting anymore. And he kind of, the reaction is, wait, why? Wait, why are we having, wait, what do you mean? And to me, that's incredibly obvious. I feel like that's something that should be in his mind. So for him not to even think about that, it really kind of tells you of what his mindset's like. Filled of anger, completely enraged person. And like you said, there's a tragic event that takes place, and it's about his and coming to terms with who he is and trying to fight for redemption, which sounds basically like what you would expect from a movie about a man who loses everything. But to me, this movie, I thought, when watching the trailer and hearing the plot, was a bit of a reach for me, as me and Louie talked about before we started recording. Just the idea of how the situation with his wife. All right, well, I'm going to talk about it because it's in the trailer. Yeah, it's in the trailer. Rachel McAdams is shot and killed in an altercation with the man who wants to challenge Billy for a title. And to me, just from the trailer at least, you're like, wait a minute, what? How is she shot in this whole big grand event? It's actually a charity event. Well, I don't know if it's a charity event, but basically it's for children who grew up in this orphanage, which both Rachel McAdams and Jake Gyllenhaal came from. and they're giving a speech and they're presenting him with an award. So an award ceremony. So it just feels like kind of completely a little bit random, at least when watching the trailer. And it still feels a little bit random in this movie. But the movie is pretty much essentially about Jake Gyllenhaal in pursuit to get his daughter back after she is taken from him. So yeah, should I just go into my review now?
Yeah, might as well, because we definitely did a synopsis.
So to me, words like cliche and predictable are words that are going to be seen a lot with this movie, because most of you guys who are, your average moviegoers or maybe even more than average moviegoers, someone who's in tune to what movies are like, are probably able to guess how this movie is going to resolve itself. And though that is something that we don't necessarily like in movies, it's not always necessarily as bad as people think either. As again, I was explaining to Louie, I enjoyed this film to a degree where, even though it was formulaic, I enjoyed myself throughout, so it didn't bother me as much. I told him, I would rather sit through a movie that is formulaic but good than through a movie that's not good and not formulaic. And I think that's where I separate from most people that I spoke with about this movie is, yeah, it's cliche, and yeah, some things are very pretty predictable, but it still was effective. Really effective at that. I would honestly say this is one of the better movies that came out this year. Jake Gyllenhaal, I don't even think I need to explain, but is great in this movie. He really embodies this character. He's very unlikable and frustrating most of the time in this picture. But there's definitely a lot of emotion in this movie. The best way to describe it actually is what it is. This movie is getting into a boxing ring and just fighting with feelings. And 12 rounds, you're getting gut punched in certain scenes. I mean, because it's not a spoiler, the scene when Rachel McAdams is dying, we've seen that arms, like you're going to die in my arms scene hundreds of times. That was one of the most heartbreaking and effective ones I've ever seen in my entire life. It literally broke my heart. And for them to do something that is so cliche, but so effective, really, really hit home with me. And that's not even to begin, that's round one. I mean, not even to begin the emotional roller coaster you're going to take, especially with him and his daughter later on in the movie. But it is a very emotional boxing fight, and you're going to get gut punched a lot in this movie. And, someone asked me about Eminem afterwards, and I said, that's kind of a cool idea, but Eminem would have, granted, he performed in 8 Mile, and he's done movies, and he's good, but I don't think Eminem would have been able to deliver this kind of performance, and I think that's partially why we went with Jake Gyllenhaal. Not down to the man's acting ability, but at the same time, Jake Gyllenhaal really elevated this character that I think that some people would have played it. Though his performance is equally matched. Equally. I mean, as good as he is, this person as good. It's not Forrest Whitaker. It is Una Lawrence, who plays his young daughter. Spectacular in this movie. I mean, not really researching right now or really looking back, but I could say that probably the best youth performance I've seen all year came from this movie. This movie is really just a very emotional and sad story and kind of a movie about redemption. And I think though it takes the steps that everyone's predicting it's going to take, it's well worth the ride because I think it really hits home. There's a great scene in the very beginning. Well, not in the very beginning, but the first 30 minutes or so when Rachel McAdams has passed away. And this is recent, very, very early after. Jake Gyllenhaal goes and shuts off the light in his daughter's bedroom. And he is walking around the door like he doesn't know what to do. He's unsure what to say to her. Because obviously he'd go in and, he's not a neglectful father, but he's not a very present father, it seems like, either. He cares about his daughter, but he's very involved in his own world most of the time. Because he wants to play with her, and after he wins his fight, he goes in and sees his daughter. But, things that he could be doing for her in the long run, it seems kind of not. He does a lot of things that aren't smart. I don't know where I was. Oh, so he seems kind of lost. and he shuts off her nightlight, and he begins to walk away, and she goes, mom always leaves it on. So he turns it back on, and you could see her emotion on her face, where she's kind of concerned, and she's emotional. Her eyes are tearing up, and you could hear Jake Gyllenhaal talking to her, but you could hear he's holding back tears. He walks down the hallway and stops, and the daughter yells, "Daddy," as she's going to talk to him and just kind of let this huge relief go, as she's like just almost on the verge of tears. And he goes, "Yeah," and he's in tears. He could barely keep himself together. And she goes, "Nothing." And they just both kind of start crying, and you could tell the confusion and helplessness that his daughter feels because she doesn't know what to do. And obviously, like Jake Gyllenhaal is a complete wreck. He falls on the floor, and it's just, they are so, all they need to do is connect at that moment, and they're just between a wall. And, you know, they're right there. They're literally in feet's length, and they're both just kind of crumbling without each other. And I thought that was a really, really powerful scene. And, you know, symbolic in the sense that it's something that they could easily, this wall could be broken down. But because they choose not to kind of break that wall, they're both stuck on these other ends and separated. And, you know, things like that are just really, really powerful in this movie. There's another great scene when she kind of finally confronts her father about how she feels about him and how she feels about her mother's death. And in the trailer, you know, Forrest Whitaker, who eventually will train this young man, tells him, "You got to let her hate you so she could get over it," because she starts hating him and resenting him, and rightfully so, because Jake Gyllenhaal takes a very, very poor path after the passing of his wife. And the emotion that happens in this movie is very real. It's very raw. I definitely got emotional in this movie. I thought all the things that had in this movie made me feel. It really hurt. I mean, there were scenes that genuinely hurt me. Like, oh man, like that was really painful. And I think that's why I really enjoyed this picture. And unfortunately, if people could only see the easy to predict movie, then I think that they're not really kind of paying attention to the characters and the feelings going on. You know, because I think every movie, I mean, pretty much every movie is predictable to a degree. But I only call a movie predictable when I'm so concentrated on how predictable it is that I don't care what's going on in the movie. Where this movie, yeah, I knew where it was going, but I didn't care because I was so in the moment. And everyone in this movie delivers such strong performances that it just really, like I said, it really emotionally rocked me. And I think it's the best way to explain it.
Yeah. And there is a fine line from being too predictable, or, you know, that takes you out of the film, to being predictable, but in a way that you kind of expect it coming, but it's not like, oh, yeah, I knew that.
Trainwreck is predictable. Trainwreck is 100% A to B predictable, but it doesn't matter because we're enjoying the ride. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's what matters. And I'm not saying a movie should, all movies all can't be original, but I'm just saying, I'm not going to fault this movie because it just so happens to be a movie that comes out, you know, years and years after movies have been made and formats have been laid out. But it works. It's effective. It touched me. It really hit me hard. I found myself connecting a lot to the movie, and I really was affected by it. And I'm not going to judge the movie because it's predictable. I mean, granted, that is definitely one of its smaller faults, but to me, it's something that I could easily overlook because of the other great elements that it offers.
So we get great acting, so, you know, and we expect that from Jake, and you praised the young actress there, which is very, very promising to hear. And the movie is, you know, boxing movies, like you said, is very much personal and about people. But at the same time, I think another great aspect of a boxing movie is how they actually film the boxing match itself, the fight. And, you know, I noticed this back when, you know, you watch Raising Bull for the first time, and how Scorsese kind of placed the camera in the ring and made the camera like a third boxer.
Yes.
It danced with the boxers, and that was so cool to see. And, you know, fast forward to The Fighter, and they filmed it like an HBO pay-per-view, which was great. You know, we both, wow, look how they did that. That's really cool. How was their filming of the matches?
I think the movie tried to do both, and it doesn't do it super effectively. Like, I think what it takes because there is like a scene when they show the fighter. Well, so in the very beginning, Billy's in a fight, and they show the fighter that's eventually who he's going to fight at the end of the movie, who's challenging him. And we look at him, and he's looking at the camera, and he's throwing up a peace sign like you would in a fight when they show a contender. But it looks so like unnecessary and fake, and the HBO little logo is in the bottom corner, and it doesn't feel like, oh, that's not how they would show it. And the arena seems kind of off. Like, it looks like at the top of the screen where the Jumbotron is, they digitally put in these banners to show off like advertising stuff, and it looks completely fake. So things like that to me were like, oh, that's kind of annoying. The boxing matches, though, I think were filmed well, but nothing like, oh man, I felt, I mean, it's nowhere near as intimate as it was Raging Bull. But I mean, we do take the role of a boxer, and when our character can't really see, we see that point of view, and because Jake Gyllenhaal always bleeds out of his left eye, we have to see with his kind of vision, but I don't think it's anywhere near as swiftly and was well shot. I wouldn't say it's one of the higher qualities of this movie, like in Raging Bull or The Fighter. I think it has its moments, and I think it's good, but I don't think it's like, oh man, the fighting sequences are amazing in this picture.
And definitely the best aspect of this film, are the performances and the relationships outside the ring.
Yeah, it's definitely the
more for that.
Yeah, I found myself the most interested during that scene. Like, as he's going through all this and he's trying to regain himself, then there's the montage with "I am phenomenal," and we see him begin to train again. And that's when I was kind of like, oh, that's right, this movie is about boxing, and we're going to end up at this boxing match eventually. And I was kind of a little bit, not disappointed, but I was like, okay, that means we're not going to get the scenes that I'm thinking of anymore. And, so to me, it's actually the middle of the movie where it's most effective, when he's not in the ring and he's in real life. But the ring is good too, but it's not something that if the middle part, or if the emotional parts that I'm speaking of were gone, this isn't a movie that I'd rave about. But because the emotional scenes in the movie are so effective and did affect me, that's why I think I like this movie so much. And I think it's safe to say that's going to wrap up my review, unless Louie has any more questions.
I think you said it beautifully, my friend.
Thank you. If you want to read my review for Southpaw, head over to chasingcinema.com/Southpaw. If you want to read my review for Pixels, head over to chasingcinema.com/Pixels. And both of my reviews will be posted. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode. Taking time out of your day to listen to this. I always appreciate it. Make sure to head over to youtube.com/chasingcinema to see all of our daily movie news updates, as well as our video reviews for Pixels and Southpaw, as well as this podcast if you're not an iTunes person. But if you are, make sure to hit that subscribe button so each week this is automatically downloaded. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Jacob Tiranno, joined by my loyal, faithful co-host / best friend,
Louie Coruzzolo.
And please continue chasing cinema.